Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Hey everybody, welcome back to the ParentPorch podcast. I'm Dom, the host. We have a special guest today. We're going to be talking about fatherhood and what it's like to be a father without having grown up with a father present in your life. We'll talk more about that in just a second, but I want to make sure to acknowledge our sponsor, Pop. They make amazing popcorn that you can turn into an experience for your family. So thank you so much for sponsoring this podcast and also making a product that all families can enjoy. Check out this video. That'll give you a little bit of an insight into how it all works, but it's super easy. It's really fun and you can incorporate it into any of the things that you're doing at home. All right. So also make sure that you like, subscribe, follow ParentPorch on all platforms. Head over to our website, ParentPorch.com. Sign up for our newsletter and check out our shop. We have our Mindful Parent Guide in there on sale right now. I don't know when you're going to see this video. The price may change, but at least right now, when this one comes out, it'll be at a special low price, so check it out. I think that's everything that I have to share in terms of announcements. Let's chat with Casanova Brooks. So, hey. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about you, what you're working on these days, and we'll start there.
Yeah, so Casanova Brooks, I think the way that I'd love to describe myself is I'm just the relationship builder first and foremost. I think everything is about relationships in this world, and I think that's going to be, the fitting theme probably for at least a lot of the people hearing my story today. For those who don't know, I would say that I was the original visionary of ParentPorch. Originally, obviously the brand has come such a long way, and I'm appreciative of you and Julie and everyone else who's had any part in this, and definitely you, because you've found a way to align it with a mission that you already had before you ever heard about ParentPorch, and so that's super, super dope, and you've taken it and ran with it. So what I'm doing nowadays is I'm focused on how do I leverage AI in everything in this world. And so what I mean by that is I've just had the pleasure of learning AI and learning how to build AI agents to be able to get more of my time back, help other businesses make money, and then also being able to leverage it for good, because I think there's a lot of things out there that when we get stuck in this world, that AI can help us to at least just get an idea, which can get us on the next path. So I use it all the time. But at the end of the day, I think I'm a relationship builder. I build relationships with people, build relationships with businesses, and build relationships with now AI.
Nice. I like that. I just took an AI course. I forgot the company, but they gave me a little certificate, so I feel special. But I learned about
Coursera or like Udemy.
It wasn't that. It was through like the creators of Claude.
Okay.
AI.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly who it was.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating because you realize how people are using AI irresponsibly, and their whole goal is how do I use AI as like a partner, as a collaborator, versus having it like take a picture of me every day, right? It can do more than that, which has been really cool. It's changed how I thought about it, especially as a parent, where a parent, somebody who is also a relationship builder, whose whole job is like working with people and having people be afraid of what AI could do for their jobs. And so hearing you bring that together is super cool. Every time I like see your content, I'm like, what is he working on? Okay. I'm more and more like bought in and drawn into the work that you're doing, and not just what you're doing, but the results that it gets people, which is awesome. Like ultimately, people are able to utilize AI to help save them time, which gives them more time with their families. It allows them to help more people, and I think that's always a good thing. So AI for good. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so Casanova Brooks is where you can find me on all platforms, CASANOVA _BROOKS.
Underscore, that's important, or else you're gonna find somebody else.
Yeah.
And perfect. So we're gonna talk about something that both of us have in common, which is growing up without a present father in our lives. And you are now a father. I can't speak to fatherhood, I can speak to parenthood, I can speak to motherhood. but wanting to chat with you about that. So let's start by you telling us a little bit of your story and growing up without a father, and maybe some of the like impacts. Like, what do you feel like you gained, but also what do you feel like you potentially missed out on?
Yeah, so a little bit about my background and my story. I grew up single mom, obviously, because my dad was never in my life, but I will say my grandma stepped in early on. I had another, woman who tried to do everything that she could to be at least the disciplinary and the more of the father figure. Obviously, I'm glad that you stated that, like, a woman can never raise a man, but she tried to do what she could, and so that, me being young, I didn't know any different, but growing up south side of Chicago, drugs, gangs, violence, I definitely think that I would have benefited from having a dad in many ways, but I was the only child on my mom's side, and last I knew I had 13 brothers and sisters on my dad's side, but he never did like anything to bridge the gap of the relationship, so I really just grew up as an only child. So there's many things that I think growing up that I would have benefited from, and I think the first thing is foundation, and what I mean by that is I think it will start out with as I was younger, I never had anyone who I could look to ask me what was the direction that I was supposed to be going. Now, for those who don't know as well, I'm very, very much a proud husband and a proud father. And I say husband first because I do believe that, my partner should come first, right? But my kids are right there, A1, AB, right? But I'm I'm a little bit more vocal than most people about that my partner should come first. Even more than probably Julie, my wife, is, for those who don't know. But I share that because if you look at me and you look at how I've always been present, I was present early on because I knew with just having CJ, right? And both of our kids were miracle babies. I think it's definitely, for that to be said is definitely a big thing. But I think the foundation that I never had was me being able to go to my dad and say, what should I do in this situation? How should I act? What should my character be? How should I think about school? How should I think about these girls, right? All of these different things, because when a mom's telling you, and I'll tell you, since I didn't have my dad, I did also have, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this, I had my uncle.
Okay.
So my grandma had two children, my mom and then my uncle. My uncle was, I want to say 2 years older than my mom. So my uncle, he lived in kind of the suburbs of Chicago. He would always come in the city and pick up my cousin because he had a daughter, and then my mom had me. So we're 9 months apart. She was older than me.
Okay.
So he would come into the city and like pick us up and then bring us back home like that Sunday night, and that was kind of the extent. But I remember early on, he would always say like, Cass, like, you got to cut the apron strings, or your mom, or more so your mom's got to cut the apron strings. She's got to let you grow up and be a man, right? Because for everything, my mom always kind of protected me. She would always say, it's me and you against the world, right? And that was cool because, I mean, there was many things from my mom and I fighting other people in the street. Like, I remember that at just the age of 8 years old, like, I'm trying to protect my mom. All of the things that you see on the news or in movies, like, that was a reality in the south side of Chicago. But, like, my dad, I just never had that to ask him, like, okay, here's the situation that I'm dealing with. How should a young man do it? And so I think that kind of set the precedence of where I wanted to go as I started to have a family. I needed to be able to build a relationship with my son early on. And I'm very, very, very proud of the relationship that my son and I have. And it's a bond that, like, I could have never fathomed or imagined that I would have. But I tell you, like, for the young man that he is right now and who he continues to become, I don't get a sense of pride over, like, we all have our own sense of pride. But when I say, like, where CJ is and where he's going, I look at that and I really feel like I had a hand in shaping that. Whereas a lot of the things you kind of can't take credit for, and he is his own person. But I feel like I've laid so much foundation, bringing it all back into him. And so when I see it now, I mean, his whole life, we've just heard how much of a great student he is. Like, when we first moved here to Texas, I mean, 3 different school districts in 3 years. And every single one, he was honor roll, principal's award, like top, like not just like low, like like honor roll, right? When we
Yeah.
were growing up, that was a thing.
That was a thing,
But
yeah.
like you know the difference when you like valedictorian,
Yes.
honor roll,
Yes.
when you at the top versus when you like, yo, I'm a good student.
Yeah.
And he's always been at the top. And so I'm very proud of that. But I think it all goes back to that foundation word and me understanding that I had to become what he needed to see, right? First and foremost. And that's kind of where it's been. And to answer your other question about what do I think I missed out on, a little bit more direct, I think that there's a lot of trauma that I experienced that I missed on how. There's a song out there by Music Soul Child, and it says, "Teach me how to love."
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. My mom always loved me.
Yeah.
Right? I never was deprived of love and support by my mom nor my grandma. But I don't know that I was ever taught how to love as a man. I don't know that I was ever taught how to show affection. And that's something that I would say I still struggle with.
Yeah.
Right, because I didn't see what that looked like, right? And it's so funny because I can't remember who it was. Actually on a podcast I just did last week where a guy had said, like, how did you learn how to become a husband or a father that your kids needed to see, seeing as you were never exposed to it?
Yeah.
And that kind of brought me back. I don't know that I had the right answer for it, but that's for another part. I don't want to just kind of allow you to, but yeah. So that's what I would say is a big thing that I missed out on by not having an older brother, a dad specifically.
Yeah. I also grew up without a present father. He just did not want to be there at all, like from the beginning. And I do think that girls need dads just as much. So you're a girl dad and a boy dad. And I do want to say, like, acknowledgement. I've encountered CJ in person a couple times. Great kid. All of the stories and even like some of the tougher moments that you told me about, like how he was responding to his little sister like last year and like kind of calling her annoying when she had this like big light, and the way in which you address that and having him think of what is her perspective, like she really loves you, right, as her big brother. And so the way in which that comes out is like this: you never want to dim her light with your words or with your actions. So hearing that before I met him, and then coming to the house and spending some time and then seeing how they interact, she's still, the light is not dim, okay?
Yeah.
Like for her at all. And the way in which he interacted with her was amazing. I'm like, that lesson, like really, I don't think he was like putting on a show for me.
No.
You could tell that was very genuine, where him and his friend are there and they treated Jada, who's like 7 years younger than them, like a human being, you know, like not like, oh, I got to get away from my annoying little sister. It was like, we're all having lunch, we're all cooking, they came down, they're hanging out, and it was great. And so being able to see almost a through line of that really powerful lesson, something I hadn't even considered because my kids are so young, is really cool. But also thinking about the other piece of what you talked about is being fatherless and not knowing how to love, and I don't think I fully recognized what I did not learn until like 30s. And I'm 40 now, and like really sitting and thinking about what didn't I learn and where else did I have to learn it, and maybe what have I still not learned. Someone actually asked me last night on a TikTok live stream, where did you learn how to love? I said, my grandma, you know, and I said, you know, my grandma and then my kids. And I said, but what I didn't really learn in a great way was like, what does like a paternal or platonic love look like from a male? I had to learn how to protect myself, or how do I act, because all I knew from a woman's perspective and what they're teaching you is that boys are bad. They're only out for one thing and you got to protect yourself. So I spent a lot of time like, okay, a man either is supposed to protect me or like I'm supposed to fall in love with him, I guess. I'm not really interested in any of that, so I'm just going to be weird, right? And like not really know how to interact until I got some really great guy friends who have shown me what it's like to be loved and supported, taking me to doctor's appointments, right? Like when, you know, I have a porphyria flare, and sitting there asking the questions and like handling things like I would expect a brother, a father, a friend to do, like, and then following up with me after I got home and then saying, no, you're actually not driving yourself home. You are hyper independent and that's actually not a good thing. I got you. And by the way, here's some meal prep because you actually need to be taken care of. And I got you some flowers with a like really thoughtful card. And you're like, oh my gosh, that is love. That's not romantic love. That is like fatherly, brotherly, uncle love, which I did not realize I didn't learn until I intentionally started to build those relationships. And so I'm like, yeah, I had to learn even to let my kids' parents be fathers. I had to tell myself that, no, they are willing, they are allowed to be fathers. Let them be fathers if they are willing.
Yeah.
Because there are things I don't know how to be a dad. Coming from generations before me that said, you celebrate me on Mother's Day and Father's Day, because I played both roles. And I have to say, no, you played the role of a grandma, a mom, an aunt, right? That was your role. And yes, you did everything, but you're not a dad.
Right.
There's something different that comes with fatherhood that I know that I missed out on. And so for you to have missed out on that and said, I'm going to take responsibility for figuring out what I want that to look like, what that foundation looks like, honoring my partner, and like that being first, I wholeheartely agree with. It trickles down to the kids, and then saying, okay, now what's the foundation for my son and my daughter is super cool. Mini rant over. How has that also led to, so you're a former athlete, you got a son who's an athlete and a daughter who's an athlete, you're an entrepreneur, you're a relationship builder, and an innovator. And not saying that mom couldn't have done that or grandma didn't do that, but where did you pick that up from, and how has that impacted your fatherhood?
So state the question, like where did I pick up?
Just like the innovation, the like taking the leadership to build something or create something, right? Even though maybe that's not something you saw or that wasn't really a part of your background, or maybe it's something that people inherently relate to fatherhood or manhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that this is one of the things that I got blessed on by maybe, I don't know. I didn't know my dad, but maybe not having a dad, right? I just got done talking to a buddy of mine, and I was saying, like, nothing happens to you, everything happens for you, right? So here's what I mean. When I was younger, because I had a lot of autonomy, my mom's working, trying to rob Peter to pay Paul, same thing as my grandma. I just got lucky enough that, you know, I wasn't a bad kid. I for the most part, I stayed out of the way of other, you know, like of harm's way and things like that, where especially growing up in Chicago, I could have got myself in a lot of trouble. But anyway, so it started out with when I was growing up, I would say there's a couple of things that come to my mind, but we're going to keep it to this one thing. I would say when I was growing up, one of my favorite shows was VH1's The Fabulous Life of, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, it was VH1's version of MTV Cribs.
Yeah.
So I think that I remember back at those days, and I would see yachts, I would see mansions, I would see cars, and all of those things when they had the bling.
Yeah.
It just painted in my mind that there was so much that was possible. Well, combine that with the fact that I was at home, I was first getting into video games as a young kid. Obviously, it wasn't like it is nowadays. But as I was getting into video games, I was always doing like my career. I was always trying to build something in that story mode that I could see the end goal, and I could build whatever it was that I wanted. So I would say growing up, I always had a little bit of a creative mind. I do believe that I'm a little bit of a unicorn in that way, right? Because of the way that I could articulate, I could build relationships, but at the same time, and Julia type, my mind is very complex, right? So the more complex that most things are, not all, because some things can kind of like, I don't want to learn that, but if it's pretty complex, like my mind wants to take it on. And so I think that all of that always just allowed me to think in the mindset that I was a creator, which gave me that innovation, combined with the fact that as I got older, it was very tough for me to allow people to tell me what to do and control my time. So if I'm also honest, like I had lots of jobs. I probably had 21, 22, I think like 22, 23 jobs at one point, right? Like I tried Vizio customer service, like all these different call centers, working at grocery store, everything. But it was hard when people would just try to control my time. So I knew that early on, I needed to figure out how did I control my time, my destiny, my energy, right? And my parents, I didn't see this anywhere, right? My mom was always working a job, dad was always working a job, but I got, or grandma, not dad. My mom was always working a job, grandma was always working a job. But what I saw was like, I had an opportunity to be able to create whatever the vision was that I wanted. And so I think that's kind of where it came from. Now, when I say the beauty came from not having a dad, is because we also had male figures that were in our lives that as I was growing up, from, the time that I got moved to Iowa, and then as I started to become a young man, others would make comments, oh man, you need to go get you a job, or, things like that. And so for me, that was very demoralizing mentally, because I'm like, I had a vision for what I wanted, but yet they don't see it. But I don't have anybody to really go and talk to. And at this point, as I'm getting older, for me, what they see is what they'll become. That's the, shout out to the 100 Black men, right? Where I first learned that what they see is what they'll become. Well, I didn't have anyone that I knew that was doing what I saw for where I wanted to become. Like, even as I was a young child, what I always wanted to be originally was an attorney, right?
Same.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Wanted to be an attorney. And then I figured out how much law school you had to go to. And I was like, yeah, it was the
LSAT for me.
All of it.
I'm like, that feels really stressful.
Not gonna do it. Then I wanted to be a sports agent, but same thing. You needed to have some type of law background, right? A minor or something. And I was like, all right, we're done with this. And so all those things, kind of played a part into what was happening for me. But when people would say those things, for me, because I couldn't go to my mom or I couldn't go to my grandma because they weren't doing what, in no disrespect, they weren't doing what I wanted to do. So for me, it was always a little bit of a loneliness there, but I just never left on myself. So I used my inner of ambition to always be like, nah, just see it through. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. You always got relationships. And where that comes into play is my character's always good. So I know that even if I fail 20 times, I could go back to anybody and be like, look, but my integrity was right. It didn't work out this way, but you can never say, and that's why I always feel like I could sleep at night, because I make a lot of mistakes, right? But my integrity was always good. And so I think that came because I didn't have a dad, right? Or someone who could show me, because if I had a dad, maybe I wouldn't have the entrepreneurial spirit that I do now. Because he would be like, boy, I told you need to go
get a job. You go to school, you get a good job, you need to be an attorney, right?
Exactly.
And you might be miserable as an attorney.
And I might be, right? So again, I think everything happens for you. And so the way that it shaped out for me, it gave me a lot of autonomy to just go out. And then even as I got older, God, everything always happened for me, because as Julie and I were getting older, still without having a dad, I'm still doing it my own way. But then I was at times where I really needed to get probably a real job, but I would tell her, I'm just like, look, I'm trying to do this. And so she could have, I could have had that situation where it would have been like, oh, if you don't get you a real job, you don't pay these bills, right? I'm done. I'm out of here. But it was all of those things. So I think that's a way that it kind of blessed me early on.
I like that. I like the piece of, you got to build this creativity, this visionary. You got to be a dreamer in a time where I still believe Black boys are not allowed to dream. Black men are not allowed to dream. There was a time on Twitter where people would say, I don't want no dollar in a dream man, because J. Cole comes out with the song, it becomes a term. And it's because maybe there are men who are dollar in a dreaming without any ambition and the follow through and the drive or the relationship building, or maybe they're lacking that integrity. Or maybe they don't have the supports. We only saw workers in my family, to the point where my grandma was devastated when she had to retire because of her health. You actually legitimately you need to be at home, right? And still trying to work. So her thought process was, well, I'll just go work for my grandson, who's my brother, who became an entrepreneur. Actually, both her grandsons are entrepreneurs, which is crazy considering that they were told, go to school and get a good job, and both really brilliant young Black men without present fathers all the time who said, I just feel like I'm built for more, that I can do something else. And them being supported by the women in their family. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you talk, and I'm wondering if my brothers if my brother's dad was even more present, well, she has some relationship with his dad, but like if he was more present, would he have told him, boy, you need to go get a job? My brother has done just like you. He'll be there for a little bit and he's like, no, I'm not, you're not paying me enough to have this much control over my life. I do think that that's important for kids to see from moms and dads, but I think you see it from dad, who's typically a disciplinarian, who's the, maybe more structure or whatever, say, I want you to dream, go follow the dream. Like that'll change your kid's life, which I actually think it has in a lot of ways for like even your son playing basketball, homeschooling, great athlete, and still like shining even in academics at such a young age, and you saying it's because you built that foundation. In that foundation, had you given him this dreaming like mentality? And tell us a little bit about like where you're seeing his dreams come to life.
Yeah, absolutely. So for sure, I would say, and I think if he was right here, he would definitely agree. I've always told him, I think early on, being a young kid, it looked like I just wanted him to be like a basketball, star.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just as much of a dreamer, right? And obviously the Dream Nation, I'm just as much of a dreamer as I am a realist. And so I told him early on, like I wanted him to go out and try everything. Basketball was the one thing that I knew that we could have a bond on if he liked the sport. So I love that. But at the same time, we built the bond through all sports. Like you said, he is an athlete, and there's not very many ways. I was talking to another buddy about this a week ago. There's not very many ways to get me emotional. And I don't know if you could tell like 5-7 minutes. Like I'm not a very emotional person. Like it's just not. And it's not intentional. It goes back to it. But with CJ, I found myself, and I probably get the most emotional when I think and talk about CJ.
Yeah.
Just because of the we've worked right? Because he didn't know what he was doing, but it's the same thing. But I've worked very, very hard to build the relationship that we have. And it's very much one where his mom oftentimes doesn't even approve of like the way that and it's never bad. Like, let me be clear. I'm never ever demeaning him or anything. But the way that I talk to him, I get the chance to be a real dad. Whereas like even with Jada, I don't. Like I hold my tongue on a lot of things. And some people will be like, no, you got to treat your girl the same way as your boy. But I see that like that is my princess. With CJ, I think how I've built his dreams in terms of that is like with basketball, it sums it up in one way. I've always been present rather than just giving him presents, right? And that sounds cliche, but I could tell you every step of the way I've been there with CJ, right? Through all of his adversity, through his knee pains, everything. Like we get up, still even now, we get up 5:30 every morning, right? I'm in there in the gym with him, the basketball, the everything. But like I've just always tried to make sure that he knew that I wasn't just trying to tell him things, that everything that, we had it when Julia and I, this was back, 7 years ago when CJ was 7, there's videos out there. I would take CJ to houses that we had just gutted, and we were flipping houses, and I had CJ in there 7 years old, right? So he could see the opportunity if he wanted to get into real estate. That's one of the things that I've told him since he was very young. And what's cool about it is we grew up in this era, at least parenthood era, where we recorded so much. So he's able to go back and see it when he was 6-7 years old. But we're walking through this house and I'm telling him about these are Floyd joists, right? And this is, drywall and all these things. But one of the other things that I've always told him was like, if you don't do anything else and you ever want to start a company, I hope you start a commercial concrete company, right? Because it's never going to go out of business. I've always talked to him about real estate. There was at one point where he was 8 years old and we got a video out there where I told him that morning I said, well, I'm going to pick you up from school. And when I pick you up, I want you to tell me what's the difference between an asset and a liability. Right, and what appreciation and depreciation means, right? And he did it, right? And there's a video out there, put it on socials, and those types of things right there is how I think that I've always tried to build the foundation. In terms of him just being a dreamer, well, now, to the point, I've always told him, because over the last 2 years, he had to really figure out how much of an athlete he wanted to be versus how much of a gamer he wanted to be. But the one thing that I told him was that he didn't have to pick. And the one thing that we told him, right? You didn't have to pick, right? But in his mind, he saw it as, I have physical work, I gotta play basketball, my back's hurt, and all these other things, like it's a grind. And he, intuitively, he knew that he had multiple options. Plus, there's one thing that I've told him many a years, but it's a circle of life, right? Now, hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create what? Hard times.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. It's a cycle.
Yep.
So again, I grew up in a lot of hardships, right? I mean, stage 4 cancer, mom, dad, home, job, matter of a couple weeks, all of these different things. Like we've experienced so much adversity, but it's created in my heart for me to know when back's up against the wall, I can do anything, right? Whereas for many, our kids, fortunately enough, they won't have to go through, hopefully, those types of hard times.
Right.
At the same time, if you don't instill some type of a foundation, especially you talked about growing up Black man, obviously I've always, I don't come off as very, where some Black men can't say this, but I don't come off as very intimidating to the average white person, right? Whereas if I'm 6'3", darker complected, I got a big beard, now I really gotta be, people will be, giving me a side eye, right? My brothers, I got a lot of brothers where we talk about those things. Now for CJ, he's gonna have it even easier, right? Because he's light-skinned, he's got the curls, all those other things. Like, he won't come off as, like nobody's gonna, identify him, right? What's the word that I'm looking for? Nobody's going to necessarily stereotype him, right?
He's not gonna be profiled in the same way.
Exactly the word that I was looking for. Nobody's going to profile him. That's the exact word. Thank you. So, but for him, he still has to understand that you are a Black man in this society. And we've said this to him since he was growing up. Because there's going to be times when people find out that you're Black, you're still going to be talked to, looked at, or challenged in the way of a Black man. The other part is, luckily for you right now, you haven't had to experience this, but when you get to high school, it's going to be a different breed, because now you got to decide. Now, sports will help to, what's the word that I would say, hide or cover a lot of that. But at the same time, as we see in those crowds, these kids, they don't understand what they're saying. And there's going to be a lot of things that are going to challenge.
Lots of heckling, even emotional parents are going to say things and encourage things. Which is a huge thing. So for me, it all boils back. And so there's two parts of why I brought this up. It might seem like I'm just on a little bit of a rant. I'm following you. I'm with it.
Number one, I brought up gaming, right? You didn't have to do both. One of the things that I learned from a buddy of mine, his name's Pat Flynn, but he had talked, he's got probably 5 million subscribers on like YouTube. He's just doing dope stuff, right?
Make sure you subscribe.
Right
now. Okay.
Make sure you subscribe. Absolutely.
We gotta catch up.
Got to. We're on our way. Absolutely. It's compound interest.
Yes.
But he said that one of the things that he told his son, because he's a content creator, that's who he is. He's got multiple channels, millions, and his son wanted to be a content creator. And he was like, okay, but listen, here's the thing that I want you to know is like, once you get exposed to this world, it becomes very cruel. It can. And and there's a video out there, but him talking about it. And his son came downstairs one day, and I might be butchering the story a little bit, but his son came downstairs one day, and he was like, hey, what's wrong? And his son just had a little bit of a different energy after he got done streaming. And he's like, I'm a little sad. And he's like, why? And he's like, well, comments were kind of crazy. And then he was like, what do you mean? And he was like, someone told me, they wish that I kill myself. Right? And he was like, so then he had to have that conversation with him. How did that make you feel? Right? All these things. And then the end of it was understanding, or him telling his son how to understand that hurt people try to hurt people, right? Hurt people. That's what it comes down to.
Yep.
So when I heard this, and this was 6 years ago, right? CJ's now 14, but I told him that, right? That was me getting that knowledge and understanding that once you get on this internet, right? Understand that there's going to be people that say things, all these other things. You got to understand your character and knowing who you are. Yep. And that was huge for me. And so I share that now because now CJ actually has his own YouTube channel. Yeah. He is streaming. He now is almost 80,000 subscribers. He's touching about 3 million eyeballs a month. He's making, I won't call out his, he's getting close to that 4-figure mark. He will be there. So he's doing his thing on that, right? But when he's streaming, right, and now he's got his sister who's now watching his streams, all these other things, but it's that foundation, and he's always on his sister's neck, and I'm hearing the things, and the mom's like, why are you always all over her? But it's because conversations that him and I have already had, right? And I've had these conversations, just being honest, of what happens if I'm not here tomorrow. Right? You got to be able to know who you are as a black man, as a protector of this family. So there's a lot of things that I'm seeing, I'm hearing, but it's because of conversations that him and I have already had. That even though his mom doesn't understand it, it's the foundation that I put into him. And I've already said, like, your mom's not going to understand it. There's a lot of the times when, as a nurturer and as a mama bear, like, I've already set in his mind, like, this type of right here, your mom's not going to understand this, right? But you gotta know. And this is those conversations we get because I've said it to him. So then when it comes to light, I'm like, I already told you, right? Like, what are we talking about here? It's not that you grew up without a dad. Everything, the money, I've laid that all into him. Not for him to know it right now, but for him to, my dad told me. Because the one thing I've always said to him, and this was even after my mom had passed. My mom passed in 2014. Or 2015, I'm sorry. Mom passed in 2015, and I always told him, like, the one thing that I never want you to have to hear is your dad would have said X, right? Your dad would have said this. No, I need you to know I'm saying it right now. So you already know intuitively. You don't have to hear somebody being like, your dad would have been so. You know your dad's proud of you. Because that's the other part. I tell him I'm proud of him. I tell him I love him. And just little things. Like, we get done with the gym workout and we're driving back and I'm like, I'm proud. Day, I just want you to know I'm proud of you. And we're fist bumping. So there's a lot of things I don't leave up for chance or for hope or for someone else to say what would have been said. Right? And so all of those things is how I have allowed him to dream. I tell him all the time, like, even before he was like, man, he wanted to be a gamer. He's like, you guys want me to play basketball? I just want to be a gamer. And I'm like, okay, first off, who's made you choose? Right? You're upstairs on that game 4 hours, 5 hours. You're coming home from school. You're going straight to the game for 4 hours. We don't even see you for dinner sometimes, right? So it's like, what? No, you put that into your mind because you saw a YouTube video or somebody saying, your parents don't understand. No, bro. What I'm trying to tell you is there's a grind everywhere. I'm legit.
You got to work for everything.
Everything. We just started.
People make it look easy, but it's not. It takes everything that you're going to do takes work. I tell people all the time, that person who went viral and you discovered them through their virality, I can guarantee you they've been working really hard for a really long time, and they deleted the rest of those videos that didn't do well so that you only saw that my story started at success. That's not how anybody's story starts. Even people who are born into really great wealthy situations, they themselves still had to do something. They still had to work.
1,000%. And I that's the things that I tell him. I mean, even if we look at ParentPorch, right? ParentPorch has been going now 4 years, right? And so while it looks like it, we still haven't even tipped the iceberg, as we already know. We haven't tipped the iceberg, but we've built a solid foundation. Now we're just looking for the one thing that takes off. Now, again, there's been success along the way, but this journey has not been an overnight success. And that's the same thing I tell CJ, right? You got to be willing to eat now. That's what I tell him, pinpoint blank. Like, live like no one else now so you can live like no one else later, right? And the fact that he's even making money, I just said this to him yesterday morning, where he's like, I just had, this day of how much he made. And I'm like, think about that. At 14 years old, how many people can say that's how much they made in a day, or this is how much they'll be making in a month, right? Legitimately. And they don't have to sweat for it. But the other part is, and these are the parts that like I wish we were recording, that I always had a camera on, because I think there's so many people that would benefit from these conversations that him and I had. But the other part is, I told him what's been the difference, or no, how did I say it? So once he told me how much he should make this month or this next month, how much he should make, I was like, but look at it. How many days have you missed the gym over this last month? He was like, none. We haven't missed the gym one time. He's getting up 5:30 in the morning. How many days have you missed practice? Right? How many days have you not done your work, your schoolwork? He's still been consistent. So again, there's structure, there's balance with everything. You don't have to give up everything else, because before, just even 6 months ago, he would have thought, because I go to practice, or but he's made that decision, and he's just been rewarded for his consistency. Right? And so that's the thing that I tell him all the time, but I'm constantly trying to empower him, because I tell him all the time, you got it, bro, you got it. Like, I could not have been blessed with a better son. I would never ever ask for a better son. Everything about him is absolutely amazing. Like, I got very, very blessed to have him. And but I've done the work of trying to shape and mold his mind, and I'm still just getting started. You know, even the money that he has coming in right away. Like, he's like, can I get this money? I'm like, nah, you got to invest 75% of it. Why? Because again, we're not building for right now. You don't got no bills.
You don't have any bills. Everything else is provided for you.
You don't got anything. So that's a huge part. But I think
and he'll be able to see how that money grows. There's so many lessons that I think can come from like fatherhood. Not saying that moms can't, but there's so many lessons that come from that. I think that I probably missed out on not having a father. Even you making space for feelings, and you telling the story about the other father, making the space to like recognize your energy is different, what's going on, and the child feeling comfortable to have emotions and feelings around dad, and dad being an emotionally safe space to say, like, I hate that you're experiencing that, but remember, we had this conversation, and so I'm going to come back to you and guide you through this situation that I've had to do myself. I wish I could go to, and I would say that my mom's not a space where I can just go emote. It's going to be a very quick, like, okay, yeah, but that happens to other people too. You got to, and not, I understand that comes from maybe the environment she was in, where I could go emote with my grandma and be like, this is really hard and heavy for me. Okay, why? Okay, well, and I still think it would be different if it was dad. I hear about how daddy's girls talk about their dad, and even people who aren't necessarily daddy's girls, but they have their dad very present, what dad is able to give them. I think about a moment I had yesterday where I'm like, I don't understand why I feel like I'm creating these really great things and people just aren't coming to it. They're not interacting the same way, they're whatever. And I have a friend who almost like stepped, as a woman, and was like, what? You have products. Do this. Like, made space for me to have the emotions, and then pointed me back to myself, which I think is exactly what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You are CJ, you are Jada, you are, like, remember that. Remember to come back to the foundation that I've given you about knowing who you are in any given moment, and then making a decision about what you're going to do. Where I feel like I almost have to go to someone else because I don't have a dad to go back to. And I don't necessarily have a mom who you would think would make space for that, you know? It's just like so many powerful nuggets that I'm getting from what you're saying, and just how important dads are. You're not just playing a part in like bringing a child into this world. And as you said, like, I've got 2 miracle babies too. That I have not told my full birth stories online yet, and I probably should because it's wild. But to see that, and then to say, like, I'm really proud of him. Couldn't have had a better son. And then remembering that, like, you are doing the intentional work of continuing to lay the foundation. Like, he is because of you. He is because of y'all, like, because of your family unit. Even if Julie's like, I don't understand, stop it, right? I've had those moments where I'm like, oh my God, no, not my baby. Like, no, not my, I want my boy to be balanced and And then maybe 6 weeks later, I'm like, yeah, dad's not wrong. Yeah, he was right. Like, I didn't get it. Like, I think it's right. There are things like, I don't get it. He's like, this is my boy, and I need you to understand, I love him, and I'm going to protect him all of that too. I get it. And he'll say, but Dom, you're a nurturer. You take care of everything.
Yeah.
That what you don't understand is being overly that way creates this. So I'm going to get him more often so that I can have some balance in the situation. And then you start to see that, I mean, a nonverbal autistic child walking back in after his haircut, you know, like with a little like smirk on his face, whatever, you know, like you can't tell me like, Mom, I feel good, but I see it all over you. I couldn't do that.
Right.
I would have like softened you up, like, oh my gosh, you look so, oh, your hair, da, da, da. Like right what I do with my daughter, where she's like, ooh, pretty, right? Oh, I'm so beautiful.
Right.
But he like, you know, he got a swag. He come back with some fresh clothes, some Jordans, whatever. I wasn't gonna do it that way, right? I can't always get him to do and bring out the full capabilities of him because he's comfortable with me. He lived in my body, so I am always like a chair. I'm a chair, I'm the blanket, I'm the comforter, and you realize that dad has like an equal and very important role, and dad's gonna do it differently, and it brings out something else in the kid. And you know, I just think about that, I'm like, wow, I kind of missed out on that. I'm eventually going to learn it in some way, shape, or form, but you realize what you kind of missed out on, and then what choice do I have to make, knowing that, okay, I missed out on it. I don't have to keep missing out on it though. I don't have to say, this is who I am because I didn't have a dad. I can say, here's what I can make possible, right? Here's what I can go and learn. Here's how I can go connect. Here's the inner work I can do so that this no longer becomes a barrier. And I can create a story for myself and a life for myself and my children and still say, yeah, and I didn't have a dad like that. Yeah, that's a little piece of my story, but it didn't stop me from anything, which I think, you know, those are all the thoughts I was having as you were sharing that. Because you just shared so many powerful nuggets that I hope people are picking up on.
Yeah.
So much good stuff. Final question, what is the different, I have two questions actually. We were talking about this before, but I want to bring it into the podcast. Any interesting moments where you've shown up as a dad in a role where folks are expecting mom to show up, and have you gotten any like interesting reactions to people who maybe aren't used to seeing dad?
If I'm honest, I don't think I get that a lot. And maybe it is because of the fact that most of the time I'm present, and we've been fortunate enough that we do everything as a family, right? So I kind of show up a lot of the times, right? And I'm present. So I haven't. The one, like I was saying before we kind of got this started, was day before yesterday, I went and picked up my daughter, and we got the line for the school when you got pick up. And long story short, the lady opened up the door and she was like, oh, it's dad today. And then I did feel some type of way, the way she said it, but I was like, but I didn't, I was just like, whatever.
Didn't make a big deal about it, but you know.
I didn't make a big deal about it, but I think, you know, again, not everything for the most part, unless I think you're intentionally trying to pick at me, for the most part, I blow a lot of things off. And in my mind, it was like showing like, oh yeah, like, and you need to know that I am present, right?
Yeah.
And so those types of things, but more so, and this is the thing that I always said, like, I'm very vocal about this. And sometimes Julie and I, we have those conversations about, like, let's use CJ, for example. If she feels like CJ's being attacked, right, especially in the world of basketball and playing down here in DFW, like, it's very physical. It's dogs all day long. People are trying to get at your skin.
I've seen
and
it,
and just if she feels like CJ's being attacked, it's like, don't point him out. And I'm like, doesn't matter. Like, I just had this conversation with CJ earlier this week. Like, never let them see you sweat. Right? So for me, I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about, it's not about what they do to you. It's about how you respond. Right? Because everything is based off of perspective. I could say something, and that something could have been, and it doesn't even matter what it is. It's about how you take it. Because it doesn't matter what I say. You might take like whatever, right? So for me, I don't take a lot of things personally unless I feel like that you're really trying to attack me. But for the most part, I'm always just looking at it as like, nah, we're good. So I don't feel that I get a lot of those situations. And if so, like, I could brush a lot of things off, right? I really can. And I think that CJ has adopted that mentality too. Like, for example, CJ is a funny kid, but obviously he's like, so we were at a buddy's house, and obviously I was gonna say he's mixed, right? Obviously, so we was at a buddy's house, and I guess they were all down at the pool, and one kid was trying to get him to say the N-word, and when we got back home, the adults got told, and this was just like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Somebody's trying to get him to say it, and CJ wouldn't say it, and things like that. Well, anyway, then his parents wound up coming right to the house, and it was like, what happened? You know how it is. Like, what? Tell me what happened. And so CJ was like, nah, it's like nothing. And even Julie went to CJ. He's like, tell me what happened. He's like, it's nothing. Like, y'all making a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
And it was nothing that happened to him. It was something about that. But CJ just happened to be involved.
Yeah.
But that was that one thing where he's like, nah, like it's good. Like just like I'm not tweaking off of that, right? Unless you can really get under his skin, which very few people kind of can. He kind of takes that, just humble mentality. Yeah. So that's what I would say. I kind of let a lot of things roll off. So yeah,
it's a lot of I think it takes a lot of self-control, for sure, because I mean that's another thing that has to be taught and someone has to remind you about. I'm a feeler, so a lot of things most of the time can get under my skin. Now I'm like, that's a projection in my head. They're projecting onto me. I actually don't feel that way. I actually don't think X, Y, and Z that they're trying to get me to feel. I might be reflecting something back to them that they are already feeling. I'm not gonna do anything else with it. I'm gonna release it, right? Or I assume everybody who says something like outwardly negative and you're trying to push me to react online, you're a bot, you're not a real person. Even if you are. I don't even know you for real. But if you have been engaging with me or you followed me for a certain reason, I'm very authentic and genuine in how I show up. If you have come to attack me, if you actually are trying to get something out of me, I get to control the situation. There was one situation where I was really sick and people were in the comment and I forgot the bot thing. Like I was very sick and I was having a flare of my genetic disorder and people were like really pushing like, you can't go to the ER for your genetic disorder, right? Like, so I'm supposed to suffer at home because I have a disability? Like, you know what I mean? No, I am actually supposed to go get treatment. And so in the moment, I was snapping. And then I made a video where I was still in that emotion, but I chose to show up with the emotion because I'm like, you don't understand the things that you say to people who are in agony.
Yeah.
When you deny them treatment, that's literally an issue in this country and across the world with people with rare disorders. You tell them, wait for a doctor appointment. Well, so on Friday night, I gotta wait till Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I could die in that amount of time. Do you realize that that's what you're telling people to do? You are allowed to go to the ER for your broken bone, your COVID, your bronchitis, your pneumonia. You get to go for that. I don't get to go. Like, that's crazy, right? But I realized in that moment, I chose how I was going to react. I chose to show up in that full emotion. And there are other moments where I'm like, that was wild. You're not a real person. I'm moving on, right? And I want to instill that in my kids too. They're toddlers, so it's tough, but I want them to get to that kind of place where it's like, actually, that's not a big deal. I actually don't want us to make a thing out of this because I've chosen to say, it's not that deep, y'all. Let's move on. You know?
Here's one thing I'll say. CJ's a lot better than me at that because I'll be remiss if I didn't say it. I absolutely, you'll feel if I feel some type of way. I'm very, and when my words cut, my tone cuts for sure. My thing though is I can bottle it. I have a very, very deep tolerance of how I'm pretty confident to say 90-95% of the time I respond rather than react. But you absolutely will feel my energy if it's different. I just choose not to say anything, right? Because I can keep that part down. But I don't want to make it seem like that I'm just like, nothing. I'm gonna keep it all the way funky. Like I'll be feeling it.
I don't even think it's actually healthy to not ever let anything, like you feel anything, you don't address anything, because then you end up on the other side of that, where now you're just this target, you're just taking hits all the time. Like, no, we need balance. I love that. Last question for you. You're a boy dad and a girl dad, just like me. As a father, what are your favorite parts of, raising a son and then raising a daughter? Because it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, everything has come down to growth, right? And growth and love, right? And I think it sums up in one way where this was like 5-6 years ago, but I first heard a saying, and it was going all around the internet, and it was, if I didn't come from a wealthy family, guess what? A wealthy family must come from me, right?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I wanted something that would just sit a little bit deeper in my heart, and this is how I always operate. But I was like, what else could I do? And like, or what else could I make it so it was really genuine to me? And it was, if I didn't come from a loving father, right, then a loving father must come from me. Now, obviously, that's not Jada. I think with Jada, my daughter, the thing that I've loved is that it's taught me very slowly, if I'm honest. Now, there's a couple of things. Let me back up. The one thing I'm always cognizant of what they both see, right, is what's going to shape their future. So never ever put my hands on their mom. Never ever called her out of her name. Joe, we never getting into fights, like, because I don't want them to ever think, and I've even had conversations with CJ about what Jada's doing, and even Jada, right, about the fact that, like, if I was to put my hands on Jada, if I was to do whatever to her, she's gonna think that, one, it's okay that when a man, right, gets mad, he can yell at her like that, or he can put his hands on her. But I've also had to learn how to, because Jada is much more like me. Like, you have you ever heard the saying
you
that,
said
like,
that earlier.
oh, she's that. So this is why I be like, and I just don't even respond, because I know, because she will, she has that flair like me, like, oh, bitch, okay, what's up then? And I know that I'm gonna lose that battle in the end, right? And I can't risk that, so I have to take a lot of L's with her. Whereas with CJ, I never had to take those L's, right? But like, and the funny thing is, they say, you know, a son is their, what did they say? A son is their mother's firstborn. Like, it's like the opposites, right? And I'm butchering it a little bit, but CJ is definitely more like his mom. So with Jada, what she's taught me is patience, right? And I didn't have that necessarily with CJ. I was still able to articulate, and he's got it, but CJ was so much of a kid that, like, one, I don't think that I was as willing to allow Julie or anyone else to try to tell me how to raise my son, because I knew what I longed for, right? But with Jada, I like, it's a lot harder for me, and I think that when I say it's slower is because I'm still trying to figure out, like, it's a boxing match, right? You know, we obviously Omaha Bud, and that was what kind of came to my mind, but you know, with Bud, those first 4, 5, 6 rounds, he's trying to feel out his opponent, right? And obviously Jada's not my opponent, but we're in those first 3 to 4 rounds where I'm trying to figure out how I can build that with her. The relationship's good, but she's so headstrong that the way that I articulate things to CJ, she'll nah, and just walk away. And I can't just go snatching her up. You know what I'm saying? Whereas, like, how the way we grew up, girl, get you know, like, you ain't gonna, and especially a mom, right? But that's not even the household that we have, is snatching her up. So it's like, well, what? Because a lot of the times you do need to instill some fear in her, because a kid that has no fear, especially when they're being raised in this internet age, there's a lot. So I gotta work 3 times as much to try to put the same foundation in her than I had to do with CJ. Because with CJ, there is still a fear. You know what I'm saying? That dad, like, square up then. Like, we talk about it now. He's in the gym. I'm like, I know he gonna try me. He gonna figure out what grown man strength is. Because every, you know, I didn't have the privilege of trying my dad, but I know, especially he in the gym, he gonna try it. We gonna see. But that's not even necessarily his personality, so we might not ever get to that. But with Jada, she'll try you, like, and I know. And so at that very moment, I gotta figure out, what can I say to her to still, 1, not disrespect her, but 2, that's not okay, but 3, there's a lot of things. And so I'm very fortunate that God has given me the ability to be able to articulate and be so much into personal development and be able to understand that there's a couple different ways that I gotta try to go at this, but I would be lying if I said that I knew. So the thing that she's teaching me is growth and patience. And for CJ, the thing that I love is the transformation, because I am seeing a younger me, and I'm seeing that he's never gonna have to go through these struggles, and hopefully, you know, he's gonna be able to call on me and say, Dad, at the times that he really has money and he's being put in a situation where he can come to me and be like, Dad, I'm like, what you think? And I'm like, and we can have that conversation. And with Jada, I hope I get to that point, and I don't want her to only come to me at the part where, Dad, this boy, he tried to do this. I want her to be able to come to me the same way.
In a similar situation,
Dad, tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And so that's the growth, but the patience that, every single day, that's what I try to instill into her. So it's been a fun journey on both. They're definitely two totally separate kids, but this is also, I think, a lot of the foundation of what I've tried to instill into CJ.
Yep.
Of if I'm not here, and because she'll go to CJ before she'll go to anybody. Her mom's right there at the top, but CJ is that. So him being able to articulate like I'm doing and tell her, hey, this is why we don't do that. That's not who we are. I think that's always going to be something that I'm proud of.
I love that. My kids are almost doing that in their own way as well. Where like my daughter, I think there's just something about daughters, because I'm like, girl. But she takes the protection over her brother. I think she doesn't have the words to say he needs extra supports, but she is very much like, I'm gonna protect you, and he follows what she says, which is like, I guess I'm not here.
Right.
But it's true. So I think you'll get there. I mean, obviously we're like locked in for life, so I get to see the transformation and like how that comes around, and maybe we'll do a part 2 on, did you get there, with her in 7 years? I'm confident you will, because of the foundation you've set. Thank you for such an amazing conversation with so many nuggets. There's gonna be so many shorts and reels coming from this one because it's so good. I appreciate you for taking the time out to chat with us about this. Make sure that you connect with Casanova Brooks, Casanova_Brooks online, and Dream Nation, and stay connected with us. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, engage with us. Dads, show yourselves some love in the comments, and let's engage on this topic. That's that. We'll see you next time on the Parent Porch Podcast.
Like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you all. It's the community we all wish we had.